Hello, I'm Mark Tucker,
And I'm Alan Furstenberg. Welcome to Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs.
It's the end of the year.
It is. I
I can't
can't believe it.
it.
Yay. 2020, go away.
Yeah, good riddance in some ways, but we still have a lot to do before 2021 really becomes the year I think we want it to be.
Yeah, it's not going to be like instantly, 2021's better. And there's been, good and bad this year.
No, that's very true. It's been for all of the rough spots that have been this year, there really have been some good points in them as well. But there have certainly been a lot of rough spots.
Yeah, there has. So like with COVID-19 and then the whole pandemic and the shutdown, the year started out great. First part of the year went to a conference in Chattanooga and first voice conference of the year, got to present at, met lots of other people, got to talk with you more.
And actually, yeah, we had a very good conversation there about where both of us were going and what we wanted to do, what you wanted to do with Speech Markdown and how I was going to be using it. And we had a very good discussion there. No, I agree. Chattanooga was a great conference.
And, and that kind of just started off the year, but it seemed like shortly thereafter, things just kind of went off the rails. And it was, it's been hard because I've pretty much been hunkered down here. It's changed the way that I do things. I don't get out a lot more. Friends that we used to go out to eat with, we, didn't do that anymore. Groceries, I do online and go pick them up as opposed to shopping in the store. And I've had a sister who's had COVID. And she's fine. And another neighbor.
How is she doing?
Yeah, she's doing fine. She she made that through. And we have a neighbor now that currently has, and like a former neighbor that's younger than me, caught it and had complications and passed away. We have a teacher friend that teaches on the reservation here in Arizona, and she's got COVID twice, and she's really concerned about what long-term effects that might be. So it's still, great that vaccines are starting to be distributed, and that is so hopeful, but it's still going to take many months.
No, it is still going to take very much. I have very close and dear friends who have had it, some of whom are now suffering from continued and long-term complications. I've had, people who I don't know very well, but knew, kind of secondhand, friend of a friend type things. But even the ones who are closest, the fact that there's no way I can reach out to them except through the computer has been challenging in a lot of ways. I mean, they're literally a few blocks away from me, and there's nothing I can do, and that's very frustrating in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that is, and we changed our Thanksgiving plans, and the family that we typically eat with, we did a Zoom call instead. So there's just, it'll be interesting to see long term how this changes the way that we do things.
Yeah.
But that's been on the challenging side, but and along with the pandemic and the isolation, I was getting concerned about how I was going to do during this time, and along came Voice Lunch. And
yeah, I think Voice Lunch is clearly one of the brightest spots in this very, very dark time for us.
Yeah, and it really at conferences, you're trying to balance the meeting with people and talking with them and like running off to the presentations that you're doing or going to presentations that you want to hear from other people. So there are those hallway conversations, but in some cases they could be very short because two people are off on different agendas. But being able to meet once or twice a week on Voice Lunch, and then it being so international, I've met so many people that it probably would have taken a number of years of conferences before we crossed paths.
And again with conferences, I thinking back to Chattanooga, the number of times I said to someone, I'm going to be speaking about this at a session tomorrow at 2:00, and their reply was, oh well, I'm speaking tomorrow at 2:00 too. So, we now both lose out in a lot of ways. But on Voice Lunch, we've got a lot more of, being able to be there and hearing what people are saying and able to, to chat with them and have these real substantial conversations about these topics that we're all talking about and working on and advancing towards,
Yep. Things that we're also passionate about and want to share and want the community to be better. Then we get to have those, and I'm touching base with more people, outside of Voice Lunch on things. So it's just been, that's been definitely a bright spot where things could have gone, pretty, like I say, pretty isolating.
Yeah.
Then that's opened up things quite a bit. And, that's led to, not only getting to know people, but us starting this podcast and just lots of good opportunities.
Yeah. And, I know there are lots of other developer communities out there, not all of whom have had the same fortune. I have friends who are deeply enmeshed in the Microsoft SQL database community, and their backbone is declaring bankruptcy. So their entire community that they were rallying around is now trying to figure out where they're going from here.
Oh, wow.
There's lots of tough parts. So I'm glad that our voice community has been able to, keep rallying around the groups that we have, that the big conferences that were out there have figured out how to change themselves. I mean, what MoDev did, moving from something that was very dependent on their big conference in Newark, or was supposed to be in DC this year.
Yeah.
And changing themselves so that they became more of a media platform. That was great work on their part.
Yeah, and I got to present at my first virtual conference, and in some ways that was kind of nice to, there's all the preparation of the topic idea, and then the slides, and then when you get at a conference and you go to present it, and you're like, okay, well, I want to block off this time right before, so I just make sure that everything's good, or you go and you check the room out, make sure you know what's going on with that, and there's a little bit of extra stress right before you present. And I did a video, sent it off, and I'm like, I guess I'm done. That's pretty cool. And I attended my session and got to answer questions from people.
And I think that's the best part online. Is that, now instead of, you've got your presentation and then you wait to the end to present. As it's going, people are asking questions and you're able to answer them live. So that hallway track has now moved into the session itself. I think that's one of the greatest discoveries that we found about virtual conferences.
Yep.
And I think they can be more inclusive now. So people who, it was a challenge to get to Chattanooga, or it's a challenge to get to DC or Newark.
Yeah.
They can attend. It's a bunch of barriers have now been lowered. And I think that really helps us all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So that's been a good aspect of it. And like on this podcast, it's just been so fun to talk about different things. I see you're at home and you've got your Coke cans in the background. I'm going to reveal a little Easter egg that I didn't realize was happening. At some point, my family, especially my wife, saw our podcast and saw your Coke cans. And during some of the earlier episodes, she started stacking one by one Pepsi cans behind my background. And I didn't notice until it was later. So they're not there now, but some of the earlier episodes, if you go back, you could look in the background, and on that shelf that I've got back there, you'll start to see a couple of cans show up. So that was her being clever behind the scenes here.
That's very fun. And, I think that's one of the things I like about our friendship and the way we communicate is that, we do talk about technical stuff. We have, even aside from the things that we record, we have lots and lots of conversations during the week about technical issues.
Yeah.
But also we've got these little bits of personal touches and whimsy that go into them. So, and that's always fun. And it's not like we don't have these technical discussions. I think looking back on the year, we've had a lot of questions about, new features that have come out or exploring existing features that are out there. or just trying to see, just trying to play catch up with what the companies are doing while
Yeah.
they're in pandemic mode.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. For those people watching this on YouTube, so I've been wearing this cap
Yeah,
for the last year. I'm going to reveal it's under the cap. So this is I've had 2 professional haircuts in 2020, and this last one's been over 6 months ago. So I've done a little trim here on my own, but it's not the only reason why I wear the hat. It's starting to become kind of a thing. I like the cap quite a bit. I actually bought it before, pre-pandemic, but so that's what's under the cap. And there was one point in time that I was growing a beard. If you go back on my Twitter feed, you might be able to see a picture of me. I was just kind of growing it out during lockdown. And at some point, actually it was Mother's Day. That was part of a gift to my wife, was to shave my beard. But that was like the longest beard I've ever had. So I don't know, there's just some funny, quirky things that have happened this year with that.
It's interesting that you say recording me, you always see me at this background, and yet I don't. The very first one that we recorded, I was actually in a different room. And over time, I've actually recorded from a couple of other different rooms as well. So I'm not always in my same office.
Yeah, you get out more than I do. I'm just here, my office.
I do, and actually,
I have a bed over here on the corner. No, I'm just joking.
I don't get out all that much, to be fair. To both be honest and to be open about it. I do have my parents live relatively close to me, so every so often I will visit them, and we have we've made it clear to each other that we need to respect that pod.
Yeah.
Because they want me to be able to visit them, and I said, well, the condition of me visiting is you need to be careful too. I'm going to be careful, but you need to be careful too. So we've had and they've been tough conversations sometimes. Yeah, no, it has been. I had my first COVID test actually over the weekend. We'll see how that's going. I had a car breakdown, I guess from months and months of not running it, my son's car. And so I have a neighbor who's very handy and nice and on the mechanical side, and he came over and took a look, and then he just informed me that a family member had tested positive and is doing fine. But I was like, okay, I better probably get checked. And we were trying to maintain social distance and stuff as well, but it just can't be too careful. You can't. And it's these are conversations that I don't think anybody would have expected to need to have. And now they need to be very, very frank and honest conversations that we have, because they're that important.
Yeah, and then this year has been, there's been lots of stressors this week. This year, including this week, around the political presidential election, and me really for the first time going against a lot of people in my party and speaking out in favor of the candidate on the other party. And that's just been a whole, challenge. And, the different protests about racial inequality. And there's just been a lot packed into 2020. And there's still a lot of progress that we need to make. There's still a lot of people that are hurting, unemployed, and a lot of inequalities that we still need to figure out how we're going to make right and come together as a nation. Yeah.
And these need to be active things that we do. We certainly need to talk about them, and then we need to act on them. And I think we as a country both need to do it, and we're in a really, we're not well primed to do it. We're now more divided than we have been in a very long time, and that's
definitely feels that way. Yeah,
that's poor grounds to try to build this sort of thing on, but we need to. And I think, and you and I have talked about some ways that we personally can do it, and hopefully some of that people will see as we move into 2021.
Yeah, I agree. And I've had to deal with some of the the racism that I've kind of inherited from whether it be my grandparents, more specifically, that I didn't really realize until this stuff has come out just how unfair things have been, and how I've in ways contributed to it by not really doing anything about it. So that's been a real challenge too.
Yeah, it's actually been a year of challenges, and I don't know. I hope we can. I really hope we can take those challenges and turn them into something good in general.
Yeah, I agree, and just going to take people speaking up. It's going to take people getting out and voting and participating more in government.
Yeah,
and we've seen a lot of that this year.
We have,
which is in a way is encouraging.
But yeah, you're right. It's going to take people speaking up and then people acting up and doing something about it. And it's the sort of thing where we've seen these patterns for years, and we've seen people speaking up and acting up for a long time.
Yep.
And I feel almost encouraged in some ways to see that we're seeing it more and more. We're seeing more people doing both.
Yeah, and I've just got to explore ways that how personally I can make a difference with the people that I know, and speaking up in ways that will help as well. What about this year on things that we've done? I know going into the year, I was working on my Number Spies game. I started working on Snatchword and put a hold on that, and worked on a project called Home Number, and then I've just finished up Snatchword, and that's out on a couple of different platforms. And then I worked at SOAR on a product called SOAR Audio, which is in the process of being released, which is really interesting, on being able to upload your own personal content and then make it available to search and play on your smart speakers. And then I've just joined RAIN, so there's just been a lot happening, professionally on side projects and fun things. So what does the year look like for you on things that you were able to do?
It's interesting. I actually went back and was looking at some of the repositories that had been editing recently, and I noticed that my main project, the voice project I'm always most excited about, Voodoo Drive,
mm-hmm.
I hadn't actually made any major changes to it since February. The changes at that time were mostly preparing for a large number of changes that I was going to dive into. And I didn't dive into them, but I've started continuing to lay the groundwork for what I hope is some really exciting stuff there. But in the process of doing that, I also did a bunch of releases for Multivocal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a nice, steady set of improvements. And the more I've been working on Multivocal and the more I've been talking to people in the community, the more I feel like I'm beginning to get a better understanding of where I want to see us going, both as a community in general, in terms of tools. Because I think one thing we've talked about a lot is that the tools aren't really there. And Multivocal is my tiny corner where I want to see the tools evolve, where I want to see things like improved templating, improved, context-driven development, improved CMS work.
Right.
So these are all things that I've been wanting to explore, and this is my way to explore them. And Voodoo Drive was also in some ways my ways to explore tools. How do we successfully talk with our data? Not just ask questions, but how do we talk with it? How do we put stuff in? What does that feel like? And I think from using it all year, and I have been using it all year myself, I very much dog food this on myself.
Yeah.
I feel like I have both a better idea of what's been lacking and a better idea of what I need to do next. So my list has grown even longer of things that I want to do. But that's always how it is, right? And along the way, it's also things like, how does, with Snatchwords, your question kind of behind it was, what does an MMO feel like?
Yeah.
And as I worked on crosstalk, my question was, well, what is a very visual thing traditionally, a crossword puzzle?
Right.
What does that sound like? And
Yeah. What would that be in a, speech first or speech forward
right. And
approach? Yeah.
and then saying, well, what does a multimodal version look like? What does it feel like when you can smoothly move between voice and visual, and how does that change? Because I think we know what a visual crossword puzzle might look like. We know what a crossword puzzle on a mobile device looks like.
Yep.
But what does it look like in this combined fashion? So working on crosstalk taught me a lot about what it needs to be done and how much more we still need to learn about how to do it right.
Well, yeah, and and interactive canvas is really new. I'm not exactly sure when, if that came out in 2020 or at the end of 2019.
It actually launched in 2019. So yeah, let's move to the technology side. What the platforms have been releasing. No, Interactive Canvas itself was released in 2019, but they had a lot of other improvements to it in 2020. And one of the biggest things that isn't fully released yet is this continuous match mode. So you'll be able to, it does more on-device word processing for certain specific words. So that's in some ways a game changer, and it's pushing a lot more into the device itself.
Because there is a lag if you've got to go from the browser that's in your smart display to the server to round trip to come back to the device. That does slow some things down. But
it does, and that's actually one of the questions I have going into next year, and that's how do we incorporate that into gameplay? How can that be useful in gameplay?
That's true.
But continuous match mode, in its limited way, starts breaking that model. But the equivalent to Interactive Canvas is new on the Alexa side, right? The web
API for games, yeah. And I haven't explored it, and that's something that I'm actually looking forward to. Hopefully, in 2021, is getting into Interactive Canvas and trying to explore. Could I have the exact same website so that it can run for Interactive Canvas and Web API for games? And that's something I'm looking for, like with Snatchword. I want to do some visual stuff that I've got already in APL on the Alexa side of things, but I want that same richness on Google, and the way to do that is Interactive Canvas. And if I'm already going to invest in Interactive Canvas on that side of things, then maybe it makes sense to switch from APL to Web API for games and use the same web content.
I'm really looking forward to you looking into this so we can have this conversation in a lot more depth. Because again, from what I've seen, the two are very, very similar. There are subtle differences.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see exactly how much can be duplicated between the two.
Well, and what's something that's interesting, I don't think is in Web API for games, is the Mark SSML tag. I'm really a fan of the Mark SSML tag, just because
not just because of the name.
Well, primarily because of the name, but yeah, other than that. But for those people who don't know, that you can have SSML content going on, and at certain points you can put a mark tag, which is basically saying a cue point that I'm right at this point, or I'm right at this point, which you could then in Interactive Canvas synchronize some animation or something, which is pretty cool. So not only do you, when you go from intent to intent, have the option to have like a scene change or a screen change, you get to have some different points throughout the
speech
content.
Itself.
Yeah. And that's right there in the SSML. And and that's the tag that existed in SSML, and it, is a perfect use now on this Interactive Canvas platform.
It is one of the things I love playing with Interactive Canvas, and it's actually something I incorporated as part of crosstalk.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. The zoom in at different points in time, is that
the zoom in isn't doing that. That's part of the scene changes. But when it reads out the word that you've told it, it reads out the letters, and as it reads out the letters get filled in.
Oh, I had forgotten that. That is cool. Yeah, I like that a lot.
And actually, I combine that with some CSS transformation styling. So not only do they fill in, but they kind of expand in. So they don't suddenly just show up. There's a little bit of animation with each letter. So it's this great combination
Yeah.
of CSS and SSML mark, and it's to do what I think is a really nice effect.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting because I've done like web development for years. Like I say, I was there for the Internet Explorer and Netscape Navigator battles.
Yep.
I remember serving up, content from the server, and that was your page. And then some postbacks. I've done that, and now more recently with single page application, where more and more is getting pushed to the client, and it seems like at an accelerated rate, the same thing is happening for the smart display content. That it's right now it's in the kind of the server serves up content, but now you're getting to the point where you're getting more and more interactivity on the client side.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun to explore, and I think interactive canvas and what continuous match mode and all of these other bits again are pushing more and more down to the client end itself. But that also leads to what I think is another big announcement this year that I have mixed feelings about, and that's Google releasing App Actions. And along with fully releasing App Actions, they also announced 40 some odd new business-specific intents for those App Actions. And while I think it's cool, and I think the way that they've done it, and I think the way Amazon has done similar on the Alexa side of integrating voice into existing apps, and they've done it in a beautifully transparent way. On App Actions, it's literally you're just editing one file describing the possible intents and where they go into the app intents, how they fit into the app. I also kind of worry about that, because that means that if I've written an app action, I think I have something that's now fully voice interactive, but it doesn't work on my smart speaker or my smart display.
Yeah.
And I worry about that fragmentation. So app actions are not something we've talked about a lot. But if you haven't looked into them and you're an Android developer now, definitely you should.
Yeah, and on our side, there was a big announcement on the Alexa side about better integration with mobile, but I haven't seen a lot out there. There were a number of big announcements, and private betas or previews that you could get involved with, and I signed up for a whole bunch, and I haven't actually seen a lot. So I don't know if they just got full or with the number that they want, or if they're not quite ready for prime time. So we'll just have to keep an eye on some of those things. One of the things I do think shipped and did well this year was quick links. I did a lot with quick links and custom action links on the Alexa side of things, and also with action links, which now are assistant links.
Assistant links.
On the Google side of things, but being able to point people through social media, through a link on the web or on mobile or in mobile apps, the ability to click and then be able to get to an invocation of your not only of your skill or action, but also in some cases deep linking into certain intents.
It's funny. Action links had existed for a while, and I wasn't aware of them. I had missed that somehow. But when I discovered them, they were, I immediately, it was literally the first conversation that we had for this series and podcast. There was so much potential behind it. And then as I tried working on it more, and then as they renamed it Assistant Links and created something they called Rich Assistant Links, which I still don't understand, it left me realizing there are major deficiencies in the implementation. And they're very frustrating deficiencies. It's things like, although I can send it to a mobile device easily or a smart speaker relatively easily, I can't send it to a smart display.
Oh,
which, so, Crosstalk, which is a very visual thing, which is, it works it works on other platforms, but it truly shines on a smart display. I can't redirect people to it on that smart display.
yeah, that is interesting because I did notice like right out the bat too that there were a certain number of devices that didn't support. I've got lots of devices here at home, and only a subset of those came up on the list of things that I could redirect to and start up the skill on. So it is interesting, to try to understand what's the deficiency, and also came out something I had just discovered is that initially they gave Amazon gave one like template where you fill in the skill ID and say this is your quick link, but they soon modified the documentation to say, oh, and you want to add a .com or a .ca or a so you actually have links where you can link to specific countries. I know Google's not the same because they release things and say, here I'm releasing this for English, but we have to release for specific skill stores, and so that's something that came out. It's nice now to have the documentation, but what was happening is that people were having to like double or triple log in to get to that point where the link would work, which was very annoying.
Interesting. And yeah, that's one of the things that I think continues to frustrate me the most. And it's not just these assistants that frustrate me about it, is how hard the documentation is to use in so many ways.
Or how it changes and you don't even know it changes, and then you go back and you're like, oh, that would have been helpful.
Right. Or, how it's just completely missing, and, you go try to research it and you find the only answer, the only reference to this problem is somebody else asking the exact same question on Stack Overflow 2 months ago without an answer. Or, and that's true across technologies, but it's very frustrating on something that's this new, where we're kind of pushing forward constantly. So we need that reference material, and nobody else is out there. Nobody else has found this problem yet, or at least nobody else has found the solution to this problem yet.
And it's reaching out to other people. So like when I had the challenge of migrating an existing dialogue flow project over to Action Builder, even though Jovo had support for it, there were some undocumented parts of that, some questions on exactly how to do that, but I was able to successfully do that, and so it's like I say, documentation could be better, and that's part of the reason of having a community is to be able to reach out and get some help on things that you need.
No, absolutely, and I think this just loops around back to the beginning where we said community really is so crucial to getting through this year.
Yeah, both technically and in so many other ways.
Yeah.
So, but this is great. We're so happy for the people that have found us on on YouTube or on podcasts and are sharing good feedback. For us, we're thinking of some ideas of ways that we can continually improve Two Voice Devs next year. So stay tuned for some of those things.
And if you've got questions or suggestions, reach out to us. We're on Twitter. People know where to find us. You can find us almost any week on Voice Lunch.
Yep.
And we'd love to hear from you. We do enjoy having these conversations with other people where you tell us what you like or what you don't like about Two Voice Devs, because we want to make this something that's good for all of us, that's good for the community.
Yep. So, well, that's been 2020. What a year. There's so much other things that we could talk about with 2020, but we would be going on for hours, as sometimes we do talk for when we get together. So, but hopefully everybody has a great new year, and that things are going well for you and your families and friends, and that the voice community just keeps getting better.
Yeah. Best wishes from all of us to all of you. We hope you have a very, very happy and very safe new year. Take care. We're Two Voice Devs.
Take care too. Two Voice Devs.